Now in this last part of Module 10, Section 4, we're going to learn how to do the product of a sum and a difference. So notice here we have 4 plus 5 times 4 minus 5. And the only difference between these two polynomials is that there's a plus here and a minus here. Everything else has to be exactly the same, okay? Not even close. So I can't have 4 plus 6 times 4 minus 5 or anything like that, okay? That they both have to be the same. I could have 4x plus 5 and 4x minus 5, again, as long as the only difference is between the plus and the minus. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to FOIL this. So I have 4 times 4, which is 16, 4 times negative 5, which is 20, right? 4 times 4, 4 times negative 5, and then 5 times 4 plus 20, and then 5 times negative 5 minus 25. So notice when I do that, I get 16. These cancel out, minus 25. And if you notice, this is 4 squared. This one is 5 squared, but notice that instead of it being positive like we did above, this one's negative because we have a plus 5 times a minus 5, which is negative 25. If I subtract those, I get negative 9. And now let's take a look at that. 4 plus 5 is 9. 4 minus 5 is negative 1. If I multiply those two together, I also get negative 9, which tells me I'm doing this correctly. Okay, so let's move on to some problems now. So we have a few different problems that I want to kind of walk through to make sure that you know how to do these. First one is b plus 7 times b minus 7. Notice that the only difference is between the plus and the minus. So I can use this rule. You can still use the box method or the FOIL method to do this. It just would take you a couple of extra steps. Or I can just look at multiplying the first terms, b times b, which is b squared, and 7 times negative 7, which is negative 49. And that would be my answer. When I do these, by the way, this sign is always going to be negative because, again, one has to be positive, one has to be negative, and when we multiply those two, then we get a negative answer. Okay. A minus 5 times a plus 5. So I multiply the first terms and the last terms. So that's a squared minus 25. And again, once you recognize the rule, then it makes sense. Okay. 2m minus 3 times 2m plus 3. Again, only difference is the signs. One's a negative, one's a positive. So I'm going to multiply the 2m times the 2m to get 4m squared. Negative 3 times positive 3 to get minus 9. And there's my answer. Okay, again, learning these shortcuts and having it written down is a good way to remember that and to make sure that you understand what to do when you see that type of problem. But again, FOIL method and the box method would also work. Okay. And finally, I think this is the last problem. We have n squared plus r squared. So n squared plus r squared squared. So this goes back to the first rule, which was in the last video. We are going to have n squared squared plus r squared squared. So we can distribute that through. And then we're going to have plus 2 times, and we multiply these two together. So we multiply those together, I get n squared times r squared. So I get that. But we have 2 times it because remember that we multiply those two components of the term, and we then multiply it by 2. Okay, so now I have n to the 4th plus r to the 4th, because we multiply those powers, plus 2n squared r squared. I'm totally happy with this answer. My guess would be that the book would probably prefer to have it this way. And that would be your answer. And we are now done with section 4.